If you're looking for a board game to play and you like sci-fi strategy games, you might be in for a treat. So my first experience with the Dune franchise was actually watching the movie Dune Part 1. I thought it was freaking amazing. The sound design and world building were really, really good. If you should watch it if you haven't. And once I'd seen the movie, I found out that there was a board game that released the same year. So this is Dune Imperium, a 1 to 4 player worker placement plus deck building game that has you placing these workers, or rather agents, across the map, and also has you building a deck that helps you interact with the map as you play. Now, first thing I want to mention is I think the art does a really good job of conveying this sci-fi feeling with a lot of the art style, and also the characters from a lot of these card art are actually from the movie. So this board game almost feels like an extension of the movie. For me, that's what I felt like coming into this board game after having seen the movie. So that's something that I liked a lot, that I didn't initially think was that important to my immersion, but eventually I started getting into it and really appreciated the presence of these familiar faces. Now, the game essentially has you sending these agents across the map of basically the Duneverse, and has you also gathering resources and building an army, all meanwhile building a deck as well, and all this culminate in helping you to achieve the most amount of victory points at the end of the game. Some of my favorite aspects of the game is its increasingly complex decision making and all the ways that the different systems interact, which at first kind of seems like, hey, there's like these little systems that are kind of spread apart. There's this combat area here, then there's also this alliance tree over here, and there's the deck building element and placing the workers in different places. And at first it kind of feels disjointed, but when you get into it, there's this overwhelming sense of connection, due to like you having to kind of choose between, oh, do you want to invest more in your army, or do you want to invest more in an alliance, and all these kind of decision making, which at the beginning of the game you don't have really that much of a choice. Well, you don't have that many options, but as the game progresses, your decision making opens up, and then now you're spending a while thinking about like, hey, what should I be doing next? That can get pretty complicated, but I do enjoy it when it gets to that point. Part of the complexity comes from the fact that there's multiple ways to victory, right? With all these systems, you end up in a situation where, okay, you might be, so the game is broken down into rounds and then into turns. So you might be losing a conflict, which happens once per round, and then you might spend the rest of your turns in that round because you don't have enough troops rallied to go invest in the alliance tree that allows you to get victory points through that, or gathering influence points, which are essentially purchasing power, to buy cards to make a more powerful deck that'll help you in the next round, or even just straight up buying some cards that just give you victory points. So there's multiple ways of like focusing, maybe pivoting, re-strategizing what you want to do to eventually get you to victory, but clearly there's multiple ways. And it's never really clear that like, hey, this is the one way to victory that'll guarantee you a victory, because there's always other things, with intrigue cards and another like wrench that kind of screws things up, and sometimes investing in those like more non-combat focused parts of the map might actually get you victories through those intrigue cards as well. And obviously you have to invest in gaining intrigue cards or building a more powerful deck that is not directly related to investing in troops for battle. Now, the complexity of the game does mean that it won't suit a group of party game players maybe, but I mean, who knows? But if you like this kind of decision making of like having to deal with all these systems, you might actually end up feeling like a tactical genius. Now, I will say that the game is a little difficult to get into because the manual that's included in the box isn't that great. When I was playing with my group, we did end up like not understanding some of the rules or playing them incorrectly. So I would advise watching a tutorial all the way through so you really understand all these like edge case rules that sometimes aren't clearly defined, but once you understand the system, I think the game is really fun. In terms of balance, I was actually not expecting this game to hold up with all these things going on, but when I was playing in a group of 4 players, it actually ended up feeling pretty good with us being consistently close together in terms of victory points. And in the end, it was like these few key decisions that ended up making someone the victor or not. Like it was that close, which was very exciting. So you got to the end game, and then you kind of like had to wrestle to guarantee that last 1 or 2 victory points that would secure you the victory. As for gameplay length, on average, we were approaching around 2 hours once we had learned all the intricacies of the game. And honestly, I feel like that's a really good length. The game never overstayed its welcome, but it had enough time to develop into what it was trying to be and all these other things. So I think it's a pretty good length for this type of game. And yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say about this game. If you couldn't tell, I do really, really like it. So if you're at all interested, you should definitely give this a shot. If you enjoyed this video, I will be making more videos like this. So if you want to follow me on my journey, please do subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.